Greetings. I am Professor Ogbuagu Ugorji Udensi. The European Union has positioned itself as a global leader on climate action. It has pledged to cut emissions by 90% by 2040 on the road to net zero by 2050. But a new controversy is emerging. Critics say there may be a loophole hidden inside the EU's climate target, one that could allow countries to delay real emissions cuts. So the question is simple. Is the EU strengthening climate ambition or quietly weakening it? The proposed target is ambitious on paper. By 2040, the EU aims to reduce greenhouse gas emissions by around 90% compared with 1990 levels. This target sits between the EU's 2030 goal of a 55% reduction and its long-term objective of climate neutrality by 2050. The policy sits within the broader framework of the European Union climate strategy and the Paris Agreement. But the debate isn't about the headline number. It's about how that number can be achieved. At the center of the controversy is a proposal to allow international carbon credits to count toward the EU's 2040 target. Carbon credits allow countries to finance emissions reduction projects outside their borders. For example, protecting forests or funding renewable energy, supporting low-carbon infrastructure in developing countries. Those emissions reductions can then be counted toward a country's own climate target. These mechanisms are expected to operate through global carbon markets linked to the Paris Agreement. Supporters say this lowers the global cost, but critics argue it creates a dangerous loophole. Environmental groups and climate analysts say the credit system could allow some emissions reductions to happen outside Europe. In practice, that means the EU might not need to achieve the full 90% reduction domestically. Some estimates suggest the domestic cut could fall closer to 85%. Organizations such as Climate Action Tracker warn that this could weaken the credibility of the target. There is also another concern: the integrity of carbon credits. In past global carbon markets, investigations found that some credits represented little or no real emissions reduction. Problems included double counting or exaggerated benefits. Exaggerated climate benefits, or projects that would have happened anyway. If those problems return, the climate impact could be smaller than the numbers suggest. Supporters of the policy argue that flexibility is necessary. Deep emissions reductions can be expensive and politically difficult. Allowing some international credits could lower the cost of the transition, encourage global climate cooperation, and mobilize finance for developing countries. Economists also argue that cutting emissions where it is cheapest globally can accelerate overall climate action. In theory, that means more reductions for the same amount of money. But the balance between cost efficiency and real decarbonization remains controversial. This debate reveals a deeper tension in global climate policy. Should countries prioritize domestic emissions cuts? Or should they rely more heavily on global carbon markets and offsets? The answer will shape how economies transform. How quickly economies transform their energy systems, industries, and infrastructure. Because climate targets are not just numbers. They determine how we plan for the future. They determine how governments, businesses, and investors plan for the future. And if flexibility mechanisms are too generous, the risk is simple. The energy transition could slow down at the very moment it needs to accelerate. Which is why this debate is attracting attention far beyond Europe. Because the rules Europe sets today may shape how climate policy is designed around the world. I am Professor Ogbuagu Ugorji Udensi. Thank you for joining us. Stay informed and stay vigilant as we navigate the strategic future of our planet. Until next time, because whoever governs climate finance ultimately governs the speed and direction of global climate action. Farewell.